away you are. It'll give you like a good 8 stops. But like, at an average distance, 8 stops of light. So anyhow, yeah, it's a diffuse light panel. It is. Um, it 100% is a diffuse light panel. All right. Anyways, let's go back to food close up and let's go back to baking. Britt pushing my buttons and making me do things. Yeah, in some ways. Anyways, Ari is a film equipment manufacturing company. They're most known for their cameras. They also happen to make lighting. They're a German company. They make the Ari Alexa, which is one of the most used premier lighting or film cameras in the industry. Um, but it depends on what you need. But yeah, most films you'll encounter are probably filmed on the Alexa, just because the dynamic range on those things are so nice. But sometimes you might need something different. Like I'm on a lot of shows where the Sony Vegas is used a lot, and the reason for that is because Sony has kind of cornered the market for an incredibly high exposure index that's not noisy. So like a really really high ISO, and so like that is used like so especially if you're doing like low light stuff or docu stuff like that's a really ideal camera for that stuff. Or if you're trying to do like naturalistic things, I don't know, there's a lot of different reasons why you would ever use like extreme low light conditions. And then there's others, there's the people who still are in the cult of red. um, I have opinions about red cameras. I think their color and dynamic range are meh. And they've also taken the route of the more resolution you have, the better. No, that's not the case. You don't need, you know, 8K cameras. I mean, the only reason why you would ever use an 8K camera is if you can't decide your freaking shot. And so you just shoot a wide and be like, I like that take. I'm just going to punch in and use that for my. Yeah, because, like, the Ari Alexa, which is, your premier camera that's good enough for, like, theatrical productions, that camera shoots at 2.5K. You don't even need 4K. Just saying. To make, like, a good image. And also good images come from good lighting and good skill. Because you can have an 8K camera or a 10K camera. I don't even know. Like, Red's got like the what? Is it the Red Weapon now? They've got the weird, most like insecure masculine names for the cameras. But basically, if you have like 10K and you don't know what you're doing, no amount of like resolution will make your image look good. You have to know what you're doing. you know and you can do good things with like okay, I'm not going to go so crazy and say an iPhone because I do think that iPhone cinematographers are a bit of a joke, but that's okay. But like you could have like a Blackmagic and still produce like a beautiful film, if I'm going for budget cameras. I guess technically I'm an iPhone cinematographer because I shoot with my iPhone. I shoot my food photos with my iPhone, and I do my stream with my iPhone. So, hi TC. Hi. I'm going well. Mediv's just managed to get me on this technological rant of electricity. So I've been doing that, and then just I'm making cookies, and then I brought out a giant light panel to show off. And yeah, exactly. You can't see the difference between 4K and 8K. There's no need for an 8K camera. It's like one of those biggest fees where like we're not going to consider any other cameras except for the Red Weapon because it's got 8K. And it's like you don't know what you're talking about. Again, you don't need that much resolution to shoot unless you know, unless you want to zoom in, and even then, it's like the problem is that the fact, like, if you think about the nitty gritty of like how red achieves that level of resolution, is like there's physically not enough space to put that many pixels on their sensors unless they make a massive sensor. But the problem is you can't make the sensor too big, otherwise you get like massive depth of field problems. So there is a limit to how big the sensor has to be, and you can't put that many pixels. And so what happens is, what red does is they do this thing where they only put like, because every pixel is made up of RGB, right, and white, and you can't fit all of that, like 8K of that, onto their sensor. And so what they do is like every fourth, they'll do the full range, and then the rest they just kind of put like like a white sensor. And so what it then effectively does is they're actually only capturing like a quarter of that sensor of actual full range color information. And then they use an algorithm to calculate and make up for the rest of it. And so while you technically have that resolution, the downside to it is that then you're digitally recreating some of that stuff. And what suffers is dynamic range, the ability to process extreme light differences in a frame, which to me, I think is the more important thing you want to look for when you're looking into digital cameras, is the ability to handle incredibly dark stuff in detail and really light stuff in the same frame. And but like, that's like, and that in itself was the reason why there were so many cinematographers who dragged their feet on going digital. And a lot of people still like film, is because film has this incredible potential for dynamic range. And you can blow your whites out and it'll still look beautiful. And you can let your blacks go black because they're really dark and rich and it looks beautiful. And so for a long time, there wasn't really any cameras that could do it. The Arri Alexa gets pretty close nowadays. And so like that in itself, like, and Arri, or I should say not Arri, but Arri, like, really focused on dynamic range, and that's why they're now one of the leading cameras in the market, is because of their focus on dynamic range and not resolution. They can make 2.5 K of pixels on a 35 millimeter sensor work. And the reason why it works is because each one of those pixels is a full range pixel, and they spend a lot of, you're getting a very accurate amount of information to make that work. Also, because red has a tendency to do that, their images, if you ever look at any movie that's shot with, I mean, obviously you can color correct it out, but if you look at the raw footage, everything seems a little green. And it's because the one pixel that they tend to keep when they're doing that shortcut is the green pixel. And the reason why they do the green pixel sensor is because green is the color that the human eye can see on a broad, like, it's the one color that we as humans can see in the most variations than any other color. And that's an evolutionary design, because green to us means vegetation and life. And so we've been programmed to see all sorts of green. And also it tends to be in the middle of that spectrum of light that we can see. And so that's why that's the case. I'm really off subject. Yeah, exactly. I have the best gear. Why aren't they superstar yet? Exactly, because you need the talent to be able to manipulate the technology to produce good images, right? Good images and like, good lighting control, good framing, good composition, and just understanding what your job is as a cinematographer is what makes you a good cinematographer, right? Because, like, I mean, granted, it's cliche for me to say Roger Deakins is a great cinematographer, because he is, like, considered one of the best, and a lot of people hype him up. And there's a reason for that. And I think his philosophy makes a lot of sense. He thinks about his role in relation to the film, right? So, like, while it's important to get these beautiful shots and to produce, like, amazing, beautiful images, he as a cinematographer, despite, like, the status that he has always believed that it needs to be in service to the story. And so sometimes that means not getting that super fancy, pretty shot for just capturing the moment of the actor. Because, like, honestly, like, you can have the fanciest cinematography, you can have beautiful images, but if your story sucks, there's nothing that good cinematography can't fix, you know? And so, like, and in order to tell a good story, you need good performances. And if you have good performances, sometimes that requires a very low profile way of you know, shooting your film so that the actors can get in the right headspace to be able to act and perform, give you the best performance you need. And so sometimes it's important, and also it's sometimes important to let that, like, story breathe, like that performance breathe, right? Like, I and so, like, I think that, like, a lot of the stuff, like, for example, like, um No Country for Old Men has these long close-ups. I wouldn't say the camera's work is necessarily simple because he has some long one-take shots, but, you know, for the scenes that are, like, you know, like, just visual storytelling, nothing super fancy, it's just very standard camera work. And with those shots and those expressions, like, he can very easily, like, just create a lot of suspense with editing and on the camera work, and it's amazing. And then I'm about to criticize a movie that I absolutely adore, but I do think, and it was the movie that he won his Oscar for, which is Blade Runner 2024. The one criticism I have of his cinematography is that, in order for him to win the Oscar, he had to get really super showy. And so some of the scenes, like, for example, there was, like, a scene where, like, and so it was, like, I guess this is a spoiler, but it was a very key scene with Harrison Ford, um, where you learn something about, you know, Rachel, and it's, like, this very emotional scene, but, like, in the shot there was just this, like, I mean, it was cool, there was this, like, light that was, like, rotating around to create, like, this really futuristic vibe, and it's a very pretty scene, but my god, it was distracting. I was trying to pay attention to, like, Harrison Ford's face, and all I could see was just this light going around, and it was, like, this cinematography that, like, really called itself out. And it's like, I'm a sucker for good cinematography, but, like, even then it's like that was a little much. And I know why he did it, because, like, he had, like, what, at that point, like, 20 nominations and no win yet. And it was one of those things where it's just like, okay, I'm just gonna make a movie that's just so beautiful that people have to, like, pay attention. And that's when he won. And it's unfortunate that that was the one he won, because, like, to me, it's like, it's a beautiful film, but it's just like, he had to go in showboat and disregard his service to the story to win an Oscar, because the people who vote on it in the Oscars, even though the academies don't really matter, but, like, the people who vote on it are actors and not, like, cinematographers. Sorry, I just, like, again went into another rant. Water the watermelon. Sorry, y'all came for cooking, and then here I am just, like, nerding out and being, like, a know-it-all about film. Thank you for the hydrate redeem. At some point in time, I'm gonna make cookies. At some point. Change the category to just chatting. I know. But I swear I'm making food. Look, there's a gram scale. You know, TC, this entire conversation started because my gram scale ran out of batteries. And Amadeus made fun of me because I wasn't sure if I had fresh batteries. Then I went into a long rant about why I don't keep that many spare batteries, because almost everything I use is rechargeable. And then we went in to start talking about 220 versus 110 volt. And then I got into this really long rant about electricity, which then caused me to go into a rant about cameras, which then caused me to go into a rant about cinematography. The new Blade Runner was a disappointment. I wish they had not made the story It did not need finishing. Okay, so yeah, I much prefer the first Blade Runner. The second Blade Runner definitely isn't as good, and to me is one of and Denny Villeneuve's like weaker films. Um, I think he did a much better job at like Arrival and Sicario. Those are both like beautiful stories of storytelling. Yeah. So the problem is that he the story just didn't really know where it was going. And yeah, I agree. There's no need to like explain it. Like I think there was the original movie stands on its own. There was really no need to like expand the story. But like to me, it's just like I got really excited about it because it's like you're talking about Denis Villeneuve, who is like a fantastic director. You know, because yeah, Arrival was great. Sicario was amazing, and then you add in Roger Deakins, like yeah, it was gonna be a beautiful movie. And there are some beautiful moments, like the shot where like Ryan Gosling's standing there and he's got the big giant projection of Ana de Armas like reaching out to him. Like holy shit, that was amazing. But overall, it's kind of the same story of the first one, and it does it in a much slower, more meandering way that doesn't make sense. And there's like less mystery behind it. Um, and so yeah, it's definitely an inferior film. Um, I still had a lot of fun, but yeah, it's definitely not as good. And it is a bummer that that was the one that like Roger Deakins won his cinematography award on. Because like to me, like I think the perfect balance of like good storytelling and like amazing cinematography, like beautiful cinematography, was like Skyfall. He should have won for Skyfall. Like that, like Hong Kong fight sequence in itself was just so beautiful. And the thing is that was like a good example of really beautiful storytelling, like really beautiful cinematography, and the cinematography not being distracting and not calling itself to itself. Um, I think he also won for 1917. 1917 was good. It was a very cool stunt. Um, but I'm a sucker for war movies. Um, and there's some really cool parts. I just don't know if the story needed to be that one take shot. And the movie that did beat it for Best Picture, to me, had better cinematography overall, and that was Parasite. And that's because every frame in Parasite is so meticulously planned. It's kind of absurd. I mean, like Bong Joon-ho worked on that film. Like that was his like child. Like Parasite is a culmination of like all of everything that Bong Joon-ho was super passionate about, like put into a film. It's like there's a reason why it blew up so well. It's because it was like he had been thinking about this movie for so long, and there's just so much deliberate choice in terms of the way the house was designed. Like there are some very odd choices about the house. Like for example, like the cellars, like randomly just the stairway that goes in the middle of the kitchen, and like that was perfectly placed for a reason. Like this whole set was designed in a way, and like the staircase placement in itself in the center of the house like represents like going up and down, like class, the different social classes. Like everything is just thought out, and it's like that is a beautiful film. Yeah. Oh, and the beautiful, yeah, the Vangelis music in the first one is so good, and like Roy, what's his name? But the guy who plays the villain, his like final speech is just so good, and yeah, like the atmosphere that is just set up for the first one is just like it's a beautiful film. But yeah, Tears and Rain is like got to be one of my most favorite like monologues in film, and the best part is that like it wasn't completely improvised. So basically, what he did, he had this long speech that was originally written, and the actor's like, "No, I'm gonna do my own thing," and he just went through the lines and picked out the most impactful parts that he thought would deliver the best performance, and then he just kind of did it organically. And so he like cut the speech down to like literally a third. He like just pulled out the different parts of it, and then Like, it was so beautiful that the crew members literally cried after he gave that performance. It's kind of insane. And they're just like, yeah, that works. Yeah. I mean, I still remember it. It's like, I've seen things. Attack ships on fire. The belt of Orion. I've seen sea breams glimmering at Tenhauser Gate. Yeah. Rutger Hauer, that's his name, yes. I think I still messed up the line, but that's off the top of my head. And then it's just like, all our memories, like tears in rain, time to die. And then, yeah. Anyways. God, I love that. I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. God, that delivery is so good. Okay. Anyways, back to baking, y'all. Okay. All right. So, I've added sugar into a bowl. um, I've added sugar into a bowl, and I need to add the salt. So 2 teaspoons of salt. Okay. And for those who are curious, Diamond Kosher Salt is my choice of kosher salt. I like it better than Morton's because Morton's, um, they put their salt through a roller instead of just letting it air dry. And so because of that, then it becomes a lot more dense. And it's easier to oversalt things with Morton's over Diamonds. And I like Diamonds because it's a lot fluffier. And it takes more volume, so it's harder to overseason things. And so you get a lot more precise control over Diamonds. Okay, so it is 2 teaspoons of salt. 1, 2. So combine the salt and the sugar in a bowl. And as you can see with the granulated plus the dark brown sugar, I've essentially made light brown sugar. Okay, so we've mixed it together. And then to brown the butter in a medium saucepan, okay. Hold on. Guess this was not. Oh, last use it, but there's some gunk on the side here. I live in a house with 3 other people or 2 other people. Okay. Sorry about that. All right, we're melting butter. You'll share one of your memories walking through Tokyo on a warm summer night in the rain with the Blade Runner soundtrack playing in the headphones. That sounds pretty dope. I could see that. I could totally see that. That's a nice. Oh, it's not plugged in. I'm like, why is the light not coming on? Okay, there we go. I'm like, I hear the clicking. Okay. So it is an entire tablespoon of butter, right? Oh, 2 tablespoons. Okay. So that's 2 sticks of butter right here. Hold on, this is short 1 tablespoon. Okay. And then I need 1 more tablespoon of butter. This butter isn't as good, but whatever. It's fine. Okay. So we're just gonna let this butter melt and then brown out a little bit. Okay. And then we let's see here. When it's dark and golden brown in color, brown bits start collecting at the bottom. The butter will stop sizzling, and the layer of foam will. Yep. Okay, so I know how to brown butter. Once the butter is browned, immediately pour it over the sugar and melt the sugar. That's interesting because the other recipe I use and I generally make generally wants you to cool the butter so that you don't fully melt the sugar. So this one you purposely want to melt the sugar. Okay. And then after that, we're going to make tongzong with this. Anyways, TC, I don't know if you're still there, but what have you been up to? How was your week so far? Okay. Mm-hmm. So anyway.